everything is feeling urgent all the time. Everything is always on, just like in a factory or if it's mechanized or industrial, pressures us to operate like a robot, basically. It turns us into machines. And growth is seen as this linear exponential thing. But at the end of the day, this kind of approach is very unsustainable, and it turns you and your team into almost mere cogs in a machine.
Overwhelm, reaction mode, and just keeping up are the old way.
You need real, root-level strategies and practical steps to grow your business or ministry without exhaustion and burnout.
Hi there, we're Anna Saucier
And Megan Gephardt,
best friends and business consultants who help faith-filled women create sustainable growth through simple strategy with a people-first approach.
Here at Apostolic Fruit, we hope to offer you clarity, support, accompaniment, and healing,
one tiny step at a time. Welcome to the Apostolic Fruit podcast, where we help Christ-led women in business and ministry strategically grow their God-given calling without burnout. I'm Anna Saucier, co-founder and CEO of Apostolic Fruit.
And I'm Megan Gephardt, co-founder and director of operations. We believe that faith and business go hand in hand. Your calling deserves a strategy and a structure that supports your purpose, your family, your peace of mind, while deeply honoring the Lord and every single human involved.
In this first episode, we want to dive into what it really means to grow strategically with a people-first approach, and why this shift is so crucial if you feel like you've been hustling nonstop, you've been stuck in reaction mode, and exhausted just from trying to keep up. So today, what we want to do is three things. Break down the quick fixes that you've likely tried in the past and why they didn't work. Secondly, uncover the root issues that continue to keep you stuck. And thirdly, invite you to a more sustainable path that supports your mission, your clients, and your well-being. Plus, we'll share some practical first steps that you can start taking right away. It's time to tend the soil so you can bear fruit that lasts. We know many of you can relate to doing all the things. More marketing, more offers, longer hours, and yet still not seeing the results that you want, and that you probably also know are possible. Things aren't moving as fast as they should, especially now when uncertainty reigns. And what once worked just isn't cutting it anymore. So if you're feeling that lostness, that stuckness, or continuing to second guess yourself, we get it deeply. And your calling is beautiful. You're currently changing lives, and you want to grow your work so that you can serve even more of the people that God has placed on your heart. You probably feel that feeling of craving the momentum of the clients coming in, of the income coming in, and not feeling so tight. You want to lead your team, your mission, your clients, your community, your family. And you long to thrive, feeling that peace and confidence that you're on the right path, doing God's work.
But when your mission is woven into your very soul, it can feel so all-consuming sometimes. And when you're feeling that sense of stuckness, it almost feels like you're trying to push through mud, right? Like, I'm just not moving fast enough. Like, how do I let this grow more without it taking over even more of my life? Or maybe you're even at a point where you're asking those hard questions of, is this even worth it? Or you know that you're called to something bigger. You're called to step into something even more. And if that feels familiar to you, you're not alone. And we've both been there. And honestly, this roller coaster can bring you to your knees time and time again and make you wonder, where am I going? What the heck am I even doing? And we want to unshame that experience. And as part of this podcast, we really want to give you permission to not have it all together. And the reality is none of us have it all figured out. We are human too over here. And business, ministry, leadership, organizational change, or trying to change the world, every single one of those things, they're constant identity shifts. It's the identity shift, but then there's also the practical pieces of it. And so today we're going to walk through the things that you may have already tried and why they haven't worked. And we want to reassure you that it is not your fault. So Anna, I'm going to pass it off to you. And if you could speak to some of those most common tactics that people try when they're feeling stuck, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. We see business owners across the board fall into the trap of thinking they need to do more. This applies to entrepreneurs through leaders of large organizations. We want to put more marketing. We want to learn more strategy, maybe through webinars or courses or professional development. And we create more stuff. But also on the other end, we may want to add more team members. Because everybody's feeling burnt out, we add more people, or we need more time, more energy, more money, which are the three types of resources. So we just want to put more on. So we add new tactics or offers and constantly looking for, and I'm guilty of this too, we're looking for that silver bullet. What's the one thing I can tweak, right? And I was consumed by this during my first couple years of entrepreneurship, continuing to invest all of the resources on so many of these different things. So we may be delegating more, bringing on new people, adjusting pricing. But all of these approaches are about throwing that word more at the problem, applying pressure. That's what more is. We're going to apply more pressure in a certain direction, hoping for that quick fix, hoping to see that shift that we want to see, or waiting for somebody else to tell you exactly what to do. The truth is that all of these are Band-Aid approaches. They're patching things up that we may see results for in the short term, but they don't ultimately address the deeper, more systemic issues. And they might even force you into a box that doesn't fit your organization, that doesn't align with your vision, your mission, and your values. So in reality, what these tactics do is they make you feel off. They may be marketing tactics that make you cringe or feel icky, but they feel like it's going to plug that short-term hole. They also may introduce a lot more complexity and spread your team more thin. They may dilute your focus. They may dilute your message, so it's not clear to your people anymore. And they may prevent you from honing your core thing, your offer, the thing that you're best at, your genius, and taking that and building a marketing system that feels much lighter over the long term that works for you, rather than these short-term quick fix solutions that are going to run you into the ground over time. So all of these things quickly deplete those resources. So instead of continuously trying these surface level fixes or just push through the discomfort a little bit longer, our invitation is to pause and ask some of these harder questions before grabbing onto those Band-Aid solutions. And in the pause, this is where we can get curious and explore and wonder about what are the underlying root causes. Slowing down enough to look within, to lay it out on the table, so that you can break free from that reactive, unsustainable growth, even when everything is urging you to figure it out as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you for laying all that out. And I resonate with that so deeply just from my early years of starting and growing my business and also advocacy work in the military. And so much of those external battles we're fighting, we're looking for that one thing that's going to generate the momentum that we need. So before we dive deeper, I want to come back to why our ministry in this podcast is called Apostolic Fruit, because I think this will really help frame this difference between the approach that we often see out there in the culture and what we really want to invite you into instead. So at its core, apostle means one who is sent on a mission. So if you're here, you view your mission as a ministry, a calling to share Jesus's love and healing in some form or another. Fruit speaks to that impact, right? It's not just about being productive. How much can we get out of ourselves and our people and our resources in our business and those that we serve, even clients? Instead, it's looking at being truly fruitful. We want lasting fruit, not just flashy success. We want the Lord to multiply our humble, tiny offering and let it create this ripple effect of change that transforms the culture across generations. And we want that all to be for His glory and not our own. So let's imagine this distinction, two ways of operating. So there's this factory mindset or paradigm, and there's this garden mindset. The factory mindset is all about maximizing input. more posts, more webinars, more tactics. It's this linear, okay, if it's not working, I'm just going to add more, right? Just like Anna talked about, more hours, more team members, resources, and that'll solve it. Everything is feeling urgent all the time. Everything is always on, just like in a factory or if it's mechanized or industrial. Pressures us to operate like a robot, basically. It turns us into machines. And growth is seen as this linear exponential thing. But at the end of the day, this kind of approach is very unsustainable, and it turns you and your team into almost mere cogs in a machine. So Anna, what would the garden mindset look like if we could describe that instead?
The garden mindset. It's important to recognize that in a factory, in that industrial paradigm, that works when you have the whole system set up where, okay, the inputs and then this happened and then the outputs happen. If you're able to put more in, you're going to get more out. The problem is that we've applied the factory mindset to humans, and we are not machines. And so that's why it doesn't work. We are much more like a garden. We grow organically and not linearly. So when we look at this more like a garden, the understanding is that growth takes time and that it follows rhythms necessarily. With a garden, in the true, if we look at the metaphor here, we can't get more fruit out by pouring more water on. In fact, we'll drown the plants, right? And you also can't, for certain plants, you try to give them more sun, they're also going to die. And so it's a big difference here in understanding the different nuances and the real need to be listening and paying attention in order to nurture this kind of growth. So we love to see this kind of nurturing of business in the garden mindset way is that we are tending fertile soil to allow the fruit to emerge. And we see this as deeply rooted in Christ, in the way that he is present to us, in the way that God is present to all of creation, that it's constantly in relationship and in presence and moving at his pace. He wants to co-create this with us. And as we draw strength from him instead of relying on our own capacity, learning to embrace this natural, organic kind of growth that allows space for rest and reflection, and often doing a lot less and allowing God to do more, his kind of more. This is what we're inviting you into, and this is where our people first philosophy transforms everything. And so when we look at matching our natural way of being, our natural growth to the garden paradigm, instead of the factory or industry paradigm, we're going to see the results that we're looking for, rather than what you probably already know is not working, is trying to fit ourselves as humans into that 9-to-5 uber productive, consistency is king mentality. Again, he didn't design us to grow according to that factory blueprint, but in relationship with him, with others, with our experiences, and with life itself. In the garden paradigm, we focus on creating those genuine, mutually beneficial relationships. We're present with one another, with our teams, with our communities, with our clients, and with the Lord, moving away from this just being a numbers game, an input-output thing, to a much more meaningful and faithful journey. And I just want to pause and say, none of this is easy, especially because it's such a big shift. Sometimes we really have to be strong in taking that space for rest and for discernment and for laying the foundation for a business that thrives in the Lord's will, rather than the burnout that most of us have felt chasing those rapid short-term results. So what we're doing here is cultivating that lasting fruit that honors God and supports your well-being so much better and transforms the lives that you're working with. So when we're living out this truly people-first approach over the long term, remember, this is the garden, so it takes the investment, but over the long term, it can transform everything. It's hard to choose this when we're wanting change. I'm seeing that things are not working. I want to do something differently, especially now we're telling you can't do it in the way that you've tried to do it before. So how do we do it now?
Yeah, so let's talk about where we actually begin on a very, very practical level. So instead of more of those same quick fixes that you've probably tried, throwing more at the problem, all those things that haven't worked, we want to invite you into something a little bit different. So we're going to go through 5 practical tips here. Number 1 is what Anna was alluding to: embrace the pause. I want to give you that permission, if you need to hear it, to slow down. And this is very, very countercultural because the world is going to be screaming at you, do more, do faster, right? But stop and truly listen to your body, to your heart, and to that still small voice of the Lord. And sometimes the reality is that rest feels unsafe. When we're so used to going a million miles an hour, I know this was so much of my journey that Anna has taught me in the last few years, but know that those quiet moments, just starting to acclimate yourself to a little bit more over time, that's where the clarity comes. That's where true integrative growth comes, both personally and in your business. And it can start with those little moments, like remembering to treat yourself like a human being, drinking water, pausing to eat, giving yourself time to be outside. Those really simple ways of taking care of yourself that too often we just forget about or we brush past in the rush and in all the ways we're pouring ourselves out. And we're responding and reacting to all the things that are going on around us, right? And if you're in any kind of leadership position, I want to not only urge you to do that yourself, but actively, explicitly encourage your team members to do the same. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times Anna and I do this for each other every single day. Are you drinking water? Have you taken a pause to eat your lunch? Sometimes you just get so immersed in your work and all the things that need to be done, but you forget to take care of yourself. And so we need help with that from each other. So that's the first invitation: embrace the pause. Number 2 is transform judgment into curiosity. So rather than rushing to fix every single problem immediately or maybe beating yourself up about what's not working, lean into a little bit more curiosity. Open that door a bit more. I wonder. That's a really powerful phrase you can bring in when your mind is tending towards judgment about something. You can ask yourself, what is this discomfort inviting me to learn right now? Hold space for not only your feelings and let them move through you, but then in that in-between space, the maybe not yet, or part of the way there, but I'm not really where I want to be yet, there's so much opportunity and wisdom that we often rush past. All right, number 3, return to your roots. So often we may lose sight of the core of our calling. So I want to invite you to, if you're in one of these spaces where you're like, okay, what I've been doing has not been working and I've been trying so hard and I have been like driving myself into the ground and maybe my team and my organization and all the resources into the ground, revisit your mission, vision, values, and what you really want to be operating by. But I think it's important to recognize that over time we change and it's only natural for your business to evolve with you. And I guarantee you that if things are not working, there's something internally that is off. There's some kind of internal incongruence that's also leading to it not being safe to invite more people into that space, right? If your behind the scenes feels chaotic or it's burning you out or you don't have enough organization to really tend to what you bring in or the people you bring in, you're going to have a hard time receiving. And so allow yourself that permission to dream big about your vision and your mission, but really center yourself again in those values. And like, if you are truly living those out, not only externally in what you're doing, but then the way that you're operating internally too, what would that look and feel like? And how could you take one next tiny step, even just maybe it's writing that down, right? Or sharing that with a trusted friend or a mentor.
As we think about these practical steps too, I want to invite you to keep thinking about them in terms of the garden mindset. With embrace the pause, every garden, any kind of natural growth requires a time of rest. Transforming judgment into curiosity, a gardener or someone who is growing anything there's so many more questions to ask about why is this not blooming in the way that I expected? Or why are these zucchinis so small? The judgment would say, well, this isn't working. I'm no longer growing zucchinis ever again, right? But the true gardener would ask a lot more questions and they'd be curious about what's happening around this situation. And then returning to the roots, what is this garden's purpose in the first place is so important. Rather than you come across very few gardeners who would say the ultimate goal is just to produce as much as humanly possible. Most gardeners I know, they're doing it because it feels good to be there, right? It feels really good to be in the dirt and to be growing things and to be co-creative with God and with nature. So then number 4 is inviting playfulness and experimentation. Well, the way that we've done in the past is very focused on, here's my plan, here's exactly what needs to be done. I'm going to do these things and I'm going to get these results. And from that place, when things aren't working, it is necessary to shift into that curiosity. However, that's really difficult to do. So one of the first things we can do is start in our words and in our approach, say, I'm just going to invite a little bit more playfulness into this. What if I call this an experiment instead of a plan? What if I play in my work today? What would it even look or feel like? And this thing that we're going to do, these results that we want to get, what if we look at it as an experiment? Here are the variables and here's the outcome and what are the boundaries around it? And what if we operate within those boundaries and we move toward this end result and then we get to see what happens? This is a lot different from a high achiever mindset that maybe some of you are coming into this conversation from that place. And that's okay. We just want to recognize the struggle and how different this might feel. If you've been used to internalizing everything as a failure, if it doesn't come out in the way that you expected, you may be in this process undoing a lot of academic or competitive environments and conditioning that you've experienced. That's been your experience and you're coming in with that. And we get that. I know especially Megan does. So as we're moving through this process, it's important to give yourself a lot of grace and understanding in letting go of those places of perfection and playing in more creative exploration and playing in the innovation and the co-creativity. But that's the fuel. This is a new kind of fuel, the new kind of, let's see, if we use our garden analogy, it's a different kind of sunshine. It's a different kind of water that we're working with. In order to design and pivot your business and make new decisions in the way that works for you and for your life, moving toward a release of the pressure that comes with the perfect factory and the pressure to prove or earn other people's approval, which can truly silence and stifle your real voice and the real you that's meant to be shared. And then lastly, number 5, we do want some structure. So we're not here to just say this whole thing is a fluffy thing that we're going to do, because the structure is really important. It's very much a both and between the playfulness and the experimentation and the curiosity and the pause. And we need a framework, an order, and a structure to your work that is truly aligned with your vision and with a healthy attachment and detachment relationship with it. This can look a lot of different ways, and we'll talk more about the importance of structure inside business and how you can create a structure that is also flexible. But without having clear boundaries and systems at all, as well as the accountability, that chaos and overwhelm can easily take over. We want to create a solid structure that not only reduces the tendency for this work to be all-consuming, where you can lose yourself in the process, but the structure also helps to reduce the distractions, the shiny object syndrome, if you've heard of that before, the grasping at those quick fixes, and creating a healthy discipline in doing the focused, often unsexy work that is necessary to grow, as well as taking the courageous actions that lead to the results that you're really looking for. And the structure and the accountability helps to create that framework for being able to honestly look at what's working and what isn't, so that you can make better decisions going forward, ones that support longevity and sustainability of what you're really trying to do. So as we conclude, if you've been trying the same tactics over and over again, or maybe been hopping between new ones, find yourself making offers that aren't converting, you're constantly hitting your capacity limits in terms of time, money, and energy, and that feeling like running through mud, I want to invite you to pause and ask yourself, what is all this making room for? The fact that you're hearing this right now and we're showing you these different paradigms, and you're now aware of doing this differently. Perhaps the Lord is inviting you to pause and to reset your vision, to examine the foundation, and to take steps toward rebuilding a more fertile ground. It is a space of tension and it's very uncomfortable, but it's not a sign of failure. It's very much a sign of hope. It's a sign that the Lord wants to speak something to you. He's wanting to do something new and make a way. He's very good at that. But it often takes a little bit or a lot of surrender on our part, and for asking for more grace to be receptive. And it's really in these moments of honest reflection, of sitting in the discomfort and the unknown and the uncertainty, and asking the hard questions, the new possibilities emerge. The new awareness comes when you begin to see what you couldn't see, when you're deep in the day-to-day weeds. When you slow down, you can lay the foundation for fruit that lasts. So my friend, if you sense you're at a crossroads where the current approach just isn't cutting it anymore, we're here to hold space for that curiosity and the discomfort and the hope. We've done and continue to do this for ourselves, and we love doing it with others because none of this is meant to be done alone. Your life's work, this calling that's on your heart I'm going to go out on a limb and say it is God's will that this life's work help you become more of who you're meant to be. And what that often means is shedding the layers of crap, the layers of heartbreak and coping that have come through your past experiences and what someone else or anyone else have said that you should be or should be doing or what your business should look like. A lot of that may not be aligned with who you are and why you're here. So in all of that, just remember that it starts with just one thing, that courageous pause, to stop and sit and maybe close your eyes for a minute and just be where you are. Thank you so much for being here with us. I will talk to you next time.
We hope you loved today's episode. If so, would you take a moment to share it with a friend?
If you haven't already, come connect with us human to human at apostolicfruit.com/connect. When you're ready, we'd love to support you more deeply.
May the Lord bless you and keep you, make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you,
and turn his face toward you and give you peace.